My guest this morning is Michael L. Blizzard. Michael L. Blizzard is an actor, poet, voiceover artist, and published playwright. He has studied acting at ATC Studios in Clifton, New Jersey. Michael has acted in a number of plays on stage and on Zoom and brings life to each of his character roles. As a playwright, he employs visual stimuli and auditory stimuli in his work as a writer. He credits his on-stage performance as a poet that launched him into a career as a voice-over artist. Michael is not just a second-year doctoral student in clinical psychology, healthcare emphasis at Pace University. He is a compassionate individual whose area of interest lies in cancer research, particularly in psychosocial oncology. He firmly believes in treating his patients holistically, addressing not just their physical health, but also their mental and spiritual well-being. His current dissertation focuses on the role of spirituality and religious beliefs as coping mechanisms in Black men diagnosed with prostate cancer. Michael is a volunteer at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center and the Albert Einstein Montefiore Cancer Center in the Bronx. He is currently a mentor at the Pesky Family Mentoring Institute at William Patterson University in Wayne, New Jersey. And in his spare time, he likes to go jogging, reading, and likes listening to jazz. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, none other than Michael L. Blizzard. Michael, good morning again.
Good morning, everyone.
Man, it's good to have you on here. Like I said, it's the perfect weekend, given that we're celebrating Black alumni up here this weekend, yesterday and today, and it's the 50th anniversary of the Black Studies that's here at William Patterson University. And I remember, as I was saying earlier, when I was here first time for undergrad, 80 to 84, and my major was business administration. There were very few Black students on campus. Then when I came back the second time, when I did my master's here, more was here. More African Americans, Hispanics. Like I said, I don't like the term minority because I don't consider myself minority anything. However, that's the terms that are used, majority, minority, what have you. But more had become in various programs and on campus and so forth and so on. Now I'm here for my third time working on a doctorate as well. And yes, definitely have seen the difference between when I was here in the 80s as well in the early 2000s. And now as we're, in 2025, I can definitely see the changeover. So I was happy to be a part of the anniversary of the Black Studies 50th anniversary. Matter of fact, Leslie Agar Jones, know him really well. Dr. Jordan was one of my professors when I was here in the 80s. So they celebrated the founders last night. So I'm saying all that to say this is a real good weekend to have you on because, as I told you before we got on the air, anytime I have African Americans, and especially African American males who are about something, I make a big deal out of that because society tries to act as if we are nothing. And so when I get brothers like you and other folks I've had on, I really emphasize, no, I need you all to understand all of that is a myth. All of that, for the most part, is a lie. All right. So let's talk about, where did everything get started with you in terms of how did we get to where we're at with acting? Because, see, again, a lot of people don't associate African-American males and poetry. Now, there's a lot of poets out there who are Black, but a lot of people don't associate that. They don't associate, in many instances, they might even associate males with poetry. So let's talk about that. You got the acting, you got the voiceover artists. Where did all this, was this something you were passionate about when you were younger in grammar school and elementary school?
Well, first again, I just want to say thank you and thank your listeners for having me this morning. For me, I just think that, when I was maybe in my early teens, I had the idea of I always liked to write. And the things that I used to write at that particular time, it wasn't poetry. It was just more of, sort of a concept of, a play or a novel. But I didn't have any training. I just was more of something that was, inspired through my Christian upbringing and training. So then I just started delving into, poetry. What is poetry? Started writing poems, and I was always a big fan of the late great Sidney Poitier as an actor, and that was just something that I delved dabbled as well too in grammar school and a little bit in high school. So those things were sort of the initial foundation for me growing up. And then with acting, what it does is it just gives me that confidence to sort of leave my body and go into a character and be that character, whether that character may be a farmer or a bank teller or a violinist or a mechanic, whatever character that I played. I made sure that I tried to put myself into that position. So that acting was a part of me, that creative side that I've always had, because I was able to juxtapose between sort of being an actor, that creative side with the poetry, but also have the interest of medicine. I always wanted to find out and figure out, how can I contribute to society in a very positive way. And my sort of transition to oncology came at a time when my mother was suffering from cancer, and actually she died from a brain tumor when I was 19 years old. So at that particular time, I thought that the best thing for me, other than just being emotionally distraught by her passing, but how can I use that as an inspiration to help other people who are suffering from cancer?
Right.
So I just wanted to use that pain and turn it to power. So I made a vow for after her passing to do whatever I possibly could do to make sure that I look at every patient, especially a cancer patient, with the same empathy and hope, and provide that resiliency that sometimes that they often don't receive. So my sort of transition to who I am today came at a painful time, but also as I reflect back on now, it was just getting me prepared for what I'm doing today.
Well, I tell you what, because like I said, I'm going to pick each one. We're going to talk a little bit about each one of them. And then, like you just said, you kind of transitioned into the medical field. But the poetry piece, I'm always fascinated by brothers who do poetry. Because I remember some years ago, I had some brothers on that wrote a poetry book. And I had asked them the question. I said, man, don't you, are you afraid or do you have any fear that other brothers would think you're soft because you write poetry, this, that, and the other? And my man turned around and he said, man, let me tell you something, brother. If you can write poetry, you will have all the women that you want.
Yeah, well. Again, that reminds me of this piece that I wrote. But look, again, for me as a poet, I've been writing poetry since I could remember, and I traveled the world, reading some of my poems. I remember I've been to Las Vegas, Florida. I've been to California. I've been a lot of places when I think about it. When you talk about poetry, and you're absolutely right that, especially growing up for me, there wasn't many poets. And plus, we have some of the great poets like Langston Hughes and things of that nature.
Right.
But these people weren't taught in my grammar school, right? Because it was just more about, okay, we're going to teach you math, science, this and that, but when you had arts or something like that, we didn't talk about poetry.
Right.
Poetry wasn't something that was mentioned, especially when I was growing up in the Black community. So I stumbled upon it, and because I'm a lover of words, one word goes with another word. So I look at it as a jigsaw puzzle. So being that I'm a poet, and I'm a creative artist, I always tell people, well, look, if you're a poet, perform on demand, meaning that if I ask you to say something or spit something, spit it out. Let us hear it. So if you don't mind, there's something that, especially for today, for the celebration that's going on at William Patterson, there's a poem that I wrote about a year or so ago. It's called Boycott. And it speaks about where we are today. And it's a short piece, maybe about 45 seconds or so. If you don't mind, can
No,
I
brother, listen,
entertain your audience with
not
that?
only do I not mind, I encourage you to do so because I always like any of my authors, any of their written work, I love for them to read it because the author gets the chance to put the inflections, the intonation. They put exactly what was going on in their mind when they were writing it versus somebody else reading it. So for lack of a better term, I always love the audience to hear it from the horse's mouth. So please, you can read more than one.
Here's from the horse's mouth. This is entitled Boycott. I refuse to be suppressed, living under dictatorship. This is America, the beautiful home of democracy, land of opportunity for the thrill seeker, become Speaker of the House, who leads to victory. And again, I say, I refuse to be suppressed. I refuse to digress and ingest this thinking. No way, Jose, after enduring so much pain, will the victim of suppression couldn't even pronounce my name. So today I declare, stand for liberation, stand for something, lad, or stumble by the side. So Boycott was written during a time where I was seeing that there was a certain group of people who were being suppressed, and I wanted to do something about it. What better way to do something about it is to write something about it, which I can always go into my memory bank and pull it out, and it brings back that moment and those feelings that I was feeling when I wrote that piece. And another piece that I wrote is called The Pond. This is more of a poem that when I wrote it, I was just thinking about, things in the pond and the melodies and just the creation and animals. So this is entitled The Pond. Leaps the beaver that lives in the pond with the swan and deer fawn and the gritty garter snake, with the squirrel that twirls, sing dangling from a limb, the red robin that's throbbing, frauding off a blue jay. From his trees, feel the breeze, hearing geese overhead, flying south without a doubt, in deep formation. Heard a shot, and then I stopped and stooped in my canoe with a jingle that made me tingle. Someone screaming, "Tampa!" Felt the thump, then I jumped as the tree came crashing. Looked around and was abashed by seeing the pond bare. So the pond was another piece that, as I indicated when I wrote it, I was just sitting at the pond, watching nature at its finest, and just came up with an idea, and there you have it. So
all right. Well, I tell you what. So, the listening audience, you all know when we do poetry or spoken word, we don't clap our hands. If you've been to a spoken word reading or poetry, we snap our fingers. So, Michael, I'm going to snap right here on the air to both of those.
Yes, sir, brother. Yes, sir.
I know that's right. But both. I mean, see again back to that creativity. And I heard you say earlier about your love of words. I'm the same way. I am a lover of words as well, because I say all the time, just about weekly, that words have power. And so I am a lover of words and a wordsmith as well. Now, it makes sense in terms of the poetry that you would now also do voiceover. Talk a little bit about that, because many in the audience may not understand what voiceover is. When we say voiceover artists, some may know, but some may not. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So I came into the voiceover industry somewhere back around during COVID. Obviously, it was a difficult time. And at the time, pre-COVID, you would go to someone's studio and record a 30-second piece. When I say piece, it's a commercial. You'll hear a voice, but you won't see a person. So I did some training on sort of the techniques of, voiceovers. Is that it's more than just having a good voice.
Right.
There's breathing, there's inflection. You have to know how to train your voice. There's proper posture that you need to take. And also, when you read a 30-second script, promo, or a narration, they actually have sort of a little bio, what they're looking for. For an example, it could be, we're looking for a 20 to 40-year-old with a deep voice, casual, happy-go-lucky, and they provide you with a script to read. So therefore, you'd have to say, okay, you have to get into character because voice acting is same as acting. Okay? So you have to get into character, go into the booth, and read it within those 30 seconds. They don't want no inflections, no ellipsis. They want, give it to me 30 seconds flat. And then what you have to do is once you record it, then you have to transfer that file over to a WAV file and then send it to the particular vendor who's interested and trying to, promote, your product. So I did a 30-second commercial. I was actually on 10 Wins when I did my first one, but that was back in 2016. I remember that moment because when it's where I was working at the time, they asked me, a pharmaceutical company was saying, well, we're looking for, at the particular time, like, they didn't call it voiceover. They were saying that we need somebody to record a commercial.
Right.
So I said, well, why not me? They said, well, why not me? Why not you, Michael? So they paid for me to go to New York. That's, because now people have studios in their home now.
Right.
So they paid for me to go to New York City. I still have those pictures. I was in a booth. We did about at least 10 or 12 takes on what I was supposed to say in this 30-second commercial. And I had time slots on 10 Wins. So can you imagine, right? I remember my dad and we was outside, and I said, Daddy, I'm coming on. It's like 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and I would come on and hear myself. And so the voiceover industry is a very booming market. It's not for everyone, obviously, because, again, there's equipment that you need to take, there's training that you need to have, and also, too, they have different genres, meaning that, I'm really more into narration, medical narration, educational voiceover, promos, and things of that nature. But it's a very, very lucrative industry, but also, too, it's just something that you have to have a passion for.
Right.
And there's a lot of training that goes into it. But if that's something that you like to do, especially, this is where the words come in at. This is where where your confidence and resiliency come in at. Because, again, it's not you. There's hundreds of other people who are artists who are trying to break in as well, too. So what separates you from the next person? So, again, voiceover is just like acting, but you're recording, yourself on the microphone. And based upon your performance and your delivery, that could either propel you or keep you where you are. So it's, again, I would recommend it, voiceover. It's not for everybody, because that's something that if you feel like you have a good voice or a good control of the English grammar, I think that maybe some of the audience should consider it.
All right. Now, which leads a perfect segue into the next, because see, you're the type of person I've had guests that are multi-talented, or either their talents dovetail. And I usually call those people Renaissance people. In other words, they do more than one thing. And I'm not mad at folks that can do one thing for all their days. If they want to be an accountant for all their days and they do that for life, I'm not mad at those people. But at the same time, I'm the type of person that do many things. And so I really connect with folks who do many things, such as yourself. So when we're talking here now, we talked about voiceover, and you talked a little bit about earlier, we kind of tap dance on it a little bit about the acting. And you were talking about going into character and all of that. Talk a little bit about, because I was having a conversation with the other day about Denzel Washington when he played Malcolm X. And the person said, I forgot that was Denzel. I actually thought it was Malcolm. And we talked about how with like Jamie Foxx, when he was doing the role of Ray Charles, that whenever he was on the set every day filming that, they would glue his eyes shut. And so talk a little bit about, preparation and getting in character. How is that done?
Oh, man. Well, from my experience and what I was taught is just know your character. When, every time that I go into a role, if I'm playing a character, what I do is that obviously, getting yourself prepared for who that character is, doing the research of that particular character, and if it's required that, putting on a stage set or putting on clothes or attire, you be that character, right? So even if it's, just say if it's a plumber, right? Maybe visualize yourself with a plumber hat on, a plumber uniform, and be that plumber. Talk about that plumber. Research some of the plumbers. What some, things that plumbers do. What are some of the things that the plumbers may say? So I would just recommend that everybody, that whatever your character is, to make sure that you go into character, stay into character, be that character visually. And then if you can visually see yourself playing that role, right, then it could actually help you in terms of your delivery. Because I'm a visual learner, right? So everything that I do, I like to use the 5 senses. So if I'm going to be a particular character, in my mind, I'm going to create myself as that particular character. Even in my spare time, I'm going to think about it. What can I do? How can I get better? Getting some feedback, right? Because acting for me is very important. And acting also is very therapeutic, right? So there's a therapy component that I receive from acting. So, again, the training, because there are some people who are natural actors. They really understand the techniques and what goes into acting. But I just enjoy it because, again, it gives me a chance to kind of come out of my own shell, sort of my own cocoon,
right,
and morph into a character and just enjoy the character. But there was one time where I played a character. The name escapes me. What's his artist's name? Thelonious Monk. I played Thelonious Monk.
Oh, okay.
So I did the research on Thelonious Monk, and it's actually, when I did the play, some of his relatives was there. So Thelonious Monk, jewelry on, and had a cigarette, and I talked like him and walked like him, and his dad was like, Michael, you was just like my uncle, So yeah. So I played him, as they said, to a T. But again, that's where the research goes in that, and that's where also too, and also you get, sometimes you get that stage fright. But I just think that when you're training and you believe who you are and you know that your purpose is, it comes to you somewhat quite natural.
And see, let me tell you what I love about what you just said, because I work with young people every day, because my day job, my actual day job, is principal of a school. Right. And I work with kids all the time trying to help them understand that whatever your craft is, you got to put in the work. And what I heard you saying was, you just didn't play these roles by magic, that you prepared and you put in the work. You studied your character, you visualized your character, you researched your character. It didn't just come to you out of the air, that you had to put in the work. And that's what people need to understand. Even for those that it comes natural to, even for the ones that get it natural, they still have to put in the work for them to get to that point where, like I said, the person I was talking to said, I forgot that was Denzel. I actually thought that was Malcolm. That takes work.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And the pride of hard work is not, in some circles, depending on who you are, and I guess when you were born, that whole ethic of hard work is not sort of like preached anymore. But this is just where I come from.
Right.
Like that hard work, putting, because again, if you're going to hire me for a role, I'm going to give you 110% of me. I'll make sure that that's just, again, principles, how I was raised. But like you said, I would advise any person or persons who are considering and doing voiceovers, do your homework, but also, too, what's going to separate you from the next person? You have to be different. You have to be not just the status quo, because people are looking for something different.
Correct.
Nobody wants the same old song. Everybody wants a different song. Nobody wants to hear, Boogie Nights all night. So you might want to hear, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Something from Rick James or something from Lionel Richie, right? So you have to sort of be sort of like a chameleon, be able to change, but also be true to who you are and your concepts and your beliefs.
I know that's right. And see, and again, like going back to the Renaissance man thing, because I'm going through your bio. As you can see, we work in your bio through as we talk.
Yes.
And so I was watching this documentary on Sylvester Stallone a couple months ago, and I had no idea Sylvester Stallone was as talented as he was in terms of not just in front of the camera, but behind it in terms of directing and writing and so forth and so on. I see here you are a playwright as well. Now, there's one thing for you to be the character that you're acting. It's another thing to write the script.
Wow.
Let's talk about that.
Oh, my goodness. So there was a play I wrote called Generational Curses, and at that particular time, I actually started my own play as a deranged father in that particular play. And at that particular time, I was like, my goodness, I couldn't believe it, because I had to take a moment to sort of catch my breath to say, hey, Michael, look, not only did you write your own play, but you're starring in it, right? And I just felt like, wow, where am I heading at? Because, you know, on the one side, I'm this cancer fighter, but on another side, I'm this creative person, right? So it just, these two different disciplines have morphed into who I am as an individual and as a person. Playwriting comes to me is natural. Actually, I'm working on a second murder mystery as we speak now. And so during the Halloween, October, through ATC, we're having something special for like Halloween, and one of the murder mysteries that I wrote is going to be performed live there. Again, it's called The Night the Lights Went Out. And I love writing, the whole concept of playwriting, screenwriting, ghostwriting. It just comes natural, right? There's an idea, there's a thought, there's a concept, and I start building on that idea, that thought, that concept, to something that just, oh my, it's just, I can't, when I start writing, right? It just comes naturally. But I just think that it goes back to all these books that I've read. Hundreds of books, mysteries of books, and so I use a lot of those, like Stephen King and Foster and all these other fictional and non-fictional writers, and those who write novels and murder mysteries. It's sort of like, how would they do it? And then I would just put my own spin on it as well, too. So playwriting is something that came natural. I wrote my first play, I believe, when I was 16 years old, and didn't get a lot of fanfare because I was just developing my concepts at the time. But I just think that was the beginning to something that I didn't know at the particular time, but I know now, decades later, that's a gift, that's a talent, and I want to make sure that I use this gift and talent to make sure that other people get an opportunity to hear and read what I was writing, but also act it out on the screen. And that right there was just one of the amazing gifts that I've ever received. And there was one play that I wrote. I'm not sure if your audience or yourself know. Have you ever heard of Biddy Mason?
Say it again.
Have you ever heard of a black slave philanthropist by the name of Biddy Mason? That is Biddy, Mason, Mason. Have you ever heard of Biddy Mason?
I can't say that I have, but I won't say that I won't either. I mean, I might have read it or whatever, but if not, I'll have to research and look up now.
Please do, because people think Madam C.J. Walker was the first African female millionaire. No, it was Biddy Mason. A brief summary. I did a play on Biddy Mason, but what happened was, during my devotionals, just reading, because it's very spiritual, and so just reading one of my devotionals, and the name Biddy Mason came up, and I did my research on it, and I couldn't believe, here it is. She was born during the 1800s in slavery, and then she started in Mississippi, and then she ended up in California, because at that particular time, California in the 1850s or 60s was a free state for slaves. So she earned her freedom, but she was a jack of all trades. She was a nurse. She was a midwife. She knew how to plow the land. She was a cook. And so what she did at the particular time, because the land at that particular time was cheap, maybe $1 an acre. So she saved up her money in a year. So she bought thousands of acres of land. Where the Lakers play at right now, Biddy Mason owned all that land.
Okay, all right.
Right? So she was born a slave and died a philanthropist. She's actually one of the co-founders of the AME, Methodist Black Church. She's one of the co-founders.
Okay. With Richard Allen. Okay.
Yeah. So Biddy Mason, I'm still, just when I think about it, and her transition from being a slave and dying a philanthropist, and she amassed at that particular time, but we're talking about 1850, 1860, 1870. She amassed like $3 million. So can you imagine?
Wow.
A black slave, a black woman at that particular time,
right?
Over $3 million in the 1850s, and that's equates to, Jesus, you do the decimal of 10 or decimal of 20 to where we are today. But she owned all of that. There's statues, there's monuments in San Bernardino about Biddy Mason. So I would recommend your listeners and yourself to, Biddy Mason. I did a play on her that was produced live, and we're thinking about now doing a musical for Biddy Mason, and I believe she should be mentioned with some of our great female icons like Harriet Tubman, Maya Angelou. We should need to have a Biddy Mason discussion that she needs to be on Mount Rushmore for all the work that she's done and for the black community. So I really would like to have maybe another discussion offline with you about how can we get this icon to be mentioned, especially during Black History Month, because she definitely needs to be mentioned.
Wow, Biddy Mason. I'm definitely going to be looking her up now that we've talked about it for this few minutes here. Have you ever, and again, I was saying this with my guest last week, the author I was interviewing last week, I say it quite often. I wrote, produced, performed, and cut 2 musical CDs, one in 2011, one in 2013. And matter of fact, a lot of times I'll use the music sometimes as the backdrop for the show because they're instrumental jazz. But there are times, even now, this is 10, 11, 12 years later, that I will listen to my work and I'm like, I can't believe I played that. And I know it was God working through me. But do you ever have like either a moment in acting or either in the playwriting or in the poetry that you go back and you look at it or listen to it and say, I don't even remember doing that. I mean, was that me? So do you ever have those type of experiences?
All the time, right? Because for me, it's sort of like I don't have the time to appreciate what I've done, but when I complete something, it could be a play, it could be a poem, it could be an acting job, right? I do it and I keep moving because there's always something else to do. So I get on that exit and then I get off the exit, get on another exit, get off that exit. So I really don't have time to sort of labor or celebrate an accomplishment that I may have done. And for that moment, it was nice, but the next day there's always work to be done.
Right. Absolutely. But like I said, I will put on, because like I said, I've been threatening to get back in the studio for the longest. I ain't got back in there yet. But like I said, I have 2 CDs out. One was released in 2011. One was released in 2013. And I still listen to those. Like, I can't believe I played that. Wow, that was actually me playing. So I know that feeling. In terms of the acting, and this is a question I always have in terms of actors, how do you go about remembering your lines? What I mean, do you just have to have a great memory, or what is it? How is it that you all remember all these lines that you say in a play or a movie or whatever?
Well, again, intuition, memory bank, and just being prepared, just taking your role seriously, and just rehearsing. That's, as much as I can say about that, because, again, it's all about memorization, especially when you're doing scene work. So if someone say something, then you have to say something. They say something, then somebody else say something, you have to say something. That takes practice. That takes effort. That takes memorization. And so those are some of the very important keys and components that every actor, I believe, should possess when they're taking on a role or multiple roles. So it's a combination of memorization, hard work, training, and dedication as well.
All right, so now we've talked about the creative side in terms of the arts. For the remainder of the interview, we're going to talk about how that now connected with the work in the medical field. And you also said what's driving you in that was your mom having cancer and passing away from that. So let's transition into that a little bit. I see you're doing your second year doctoral work in clinical psychology at Pace.
Yes.
And you're doing your cancer research and, psychosocial oncology. And it talks about here, you firmly believe in treating your patients holistically, addressing not just the physical health, but their mental, spiritual well-being. Let's talk about let's just talk about the whole health area that you went into, particularly being driven by, because a lot of people are driven by an event such as just as you described. Like this happened to a family member, and now that spurred me to do this. So let's talk about that. Let's get into that. And the two, the creative arts and this, they may merge.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because I read, this is a while ago, I read an article in the Journal of American Medical Association. And if anybody subscribes to what we call JAMAS, the acronym, that they do a lot of poems in there, like maybe towards the tail end of the journal. But I've noticed that a lot of doctors write poetry. And, when they were interviewing this one doctor, he says, yeah, poetry, I do poetry. I'm a surgeon, but I do poetry. Or I'm a pulmonologist, and I do poetry as well, too, because it's therapeutic. Right? It's just something that they do. And I was always like saying, well, is that me as well, too? Because, again, a love of words and just how putting words together. And plus, especially if you're if you have a MD or a PhD or a nurse practitioner, whoever you are, there's words, you need to be fast and think on your feet.
Right.
So for me, it just was more of, it was a part of me. Prior to my mom's passing, I applied at Wake Forest University Medical School, and I got in. But when my mom's passed, I didn't go. I let it go because if she couldn't be there with me in the audience, it didn't mean anything at that particular time. So what I did was I made a vow that, okay, old mommy, I know you're gone, but you're still with me, and I'm going to get back into this particular field. So getting into it, it's just been a part of, something that I've longed to do, to help people, to help them, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. And when we talk about psychosocial oncology, well, what is psychosocial oncology?
Right.
And so it just deals with the psychological reactions to the experience of cancer, the behavioral component of coping with cancer, as well as behavioral change, including, what we call preventative medicine and social factors dealing with diagnosis and treatment, including, communication with providers and family members. So if you can think about psychosocial oncology, so if we have a patient that comes to the office and says, well, he's diagnosed with prostate cancer, right? Too often we deal with the disease and not with the person.
Right?
That's the problem, because you have to not only deal with the disease, but you have to deal with the psychology of the individual. Because what happens is, I'm sorry, that's my bird in the background. I can't.
That's all right.
My bird hears me.
That's all right. It's not bothering me. It's not coming through loudly, so you're good.
Oh, okay. I thought it was coming through loud because I can hear birdie. But no. So with psychosocial oncology, we're not only looking at the disease, but we're also looking at the psychology and how can we try to keep this person in some kind of psychological state where it could be beneficial for them. And that's just something for a long time. I've always was trying to figure out, like with my mom or with my aunt, we dealt with the disease, but we never dealt with her psychological state. How is she emotionally?
Right.
How's she dealing with the depression of being diagnosed with cancer, right? Now we need to talk financial toxicity. How are we going to deal with the finances or the communication, right? Or the lack thereof of communication. So Jimmy Holland, she's the founder of Psychosocial Oncology, which came from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City. So I did some research about her. I fell in love with this particular genre of oncology, And I've been studying that for quite a while now, for several years now. And I'm just happy to be a part of this doctoral program that emphasizes, right, psychosocial oncology and mental health well-being as we treat our patients in the future. Because, again, if you don't take care of a person's psychology, that mental state, how can they be compliant with the treatment that we're providing?
Absolutely.
For a disease state. So
Absolutely.
That's my theory.
No, and you know what? That makes perfect sense. Only, okay, we'll stay with the cancer, but I'm going to shift over to other diseases as well. But for the most part, when you hear the word cancer, you immediately think death sentence. When you're diagnosed and the doctor tells you we found this and it's cancerous, your mind immediately goes to dying. But then, like you said, everything that goes along, even if you're surviving, everything that goes along with it, you do have to deal with the mental, like you mentioned, depression. Quite naturally, anybody who's suffering or sick or just, like I said, if in their mind they're thinking death, they're probably going to fall into a depressed state. And so those things do that. And the reason why I'm saying I'm sure because my mom just passed away in May, and she ultimately had dementia. And the same thing that you're talking about with the oncology is the same thing for dementia patients. She knew she had it, so she was in and out. She would be coherent one minute and confused the next. So the part that she was coherent, she knew she had it, and it was kind of like, what's going on? And she had to deal with that because the part when you're incoherent and when you're confused, well, you out there. But whenever whenever you know what you're talking about and you know something's wrong with me, that does mess with you, not to mention the family members.
Well, there it is. And that's the key component, because in order to bring somebody to some semblance of quality of life for them after a cancer diagnosis or type 2 diabetes, it could be hypertension, high cholesterol. I mean, there could be multiple diseases. Again, mental health. I did a 2-part series on mental health on my show, where we're talking about looking at, the challenges of mental health, especially for African Americans, right? Because, again, if you don't talk about it,
absolutely,
if you feel like, well, maybe there's something wrong, or maybe I just don't feel like myself, I feel blue. But if you don't have no origin of why you feel blue, then it's hard to try to help a person, because, again, especially men, we're not going to talk about, hey, I feel blue, because we think that's more feminine.
Right.
We don't think that that's supposed to happen, man, because we're masculine. We're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be rah, rah, rah. But that's not the case. I believe a true man could say, hey, I got some problems going on. I'm hearing some things.
I know that's right.
Help, right? And so that's what I'm trying to encourage to all men, especially black men, but to all men, right? No one is invulnerable. Even Superman, his kryptonite has kryptonite, right? So I just think that no one is invulnerable. Right?
No, you're absolutely right. And I am a firm, because I had an experience with someone that had a mental health breakdown that really ruined a lot. But I am convinced that COVID during the pandemic, if you had any type of mental issues going on, it exacerbated it, because, with us being isolated and the fear and everything else, I truly believe, based on my experience, that if you had anything underlying in terms of mental health issues, that it got exacerbated during the pandemic. But you said something that was critical as well. In the African American community, based on our history with medicine and doctors, and we are very reluctant to even go to doctors, let alone now therapists for mental health, because this is what happens with the mental health thing. It gets stigmatized. Right. Because whenever I was dealing with the child, I would tell people, well, if that was cancer, would you say that about the person? If that was, like you said, diabetes or heart, would you say that? Because it's a mental health thing, oh, they must be crazy. Oh, something's wrong with it. That's where a lot of people get messed up in terms of the stigmatization.
That is correct. Do you know that at one time, people thought that cancer was contagious?
Right.
So we've come a long way from cancer, debunking that false claim of cancer being contagious. Where it's at now, we're at, okay, well, real men don't talk, or you're not a man, if or you're less than a man if you go see a mental health expert,
Right.
deal with some of the challenges that a number of men have on a daily basis, and I just think that's an education. I think you need to be more frank and open and be honest about mental health and healthcare, especially for our men in our community, and also be understanding of why.
Right.
Because again, it's hard to try to get somebody to come to see the physician or come see me at the office. If Michael, I got 2 jobs, right?
Right.
I get paid per day. I can't take off a day of work, or my family depends on me. But the question is that if you're hospitalized, or if you're incapacitated, right, let us try to take care of it earlier versus later. But again, education, training, and just instead of talking, this medical verbiage to our patients, we need to just talk to them,
Right.
in an honest and open way, so they can feel comfortable and make sure that their voices are heard as well.
Well, I tell you, like I said, when I was going through that experience, I had to get a therapist myself. Now I went for a few, so I didn't have to go long term, but I did have to see somebody. I had to talk to somebody before I wound up going down into the the rabbit hole.
Yes. I one thing, I'm affiliated also, I didn't mention on my bio, I'm affiliated with Montefiore Cancer Center at the Albert Einstein School of Medicine. And we have a program called the BOLD. It's called the Bronx Oncology Living Daily Program. And there what we do is we see cancer patients, and we go into the hospitals and talk with them and write up a report. So with that, right, I get a chance to really see these patients, converse with them, and talk with them, and also to providing them support, right? And it's tough when you see somebody in their 20s, a young lady
Right.
in their 20s, right? I mean, like the stage 3, like endometrial, like stage 3 cervical cancer, or a young man, his 20s, early 30s, right, with a brain tumor. It's tough to see, people like that because they're so young. But when you go back and you look, do more research, something I'm very interested in, very passionate about, is when we talk about pediatric oncology, especially St. Jude. And I think
Right.
I would recommend that every listener, not just only your listeners, mine as well, too, that we can donate more, just do more research on St. Jude. Like these kids, 4 or 5, 3 years old, childhood cancer is real.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I'm very passionate about as well, too, to provide not only support to those little kids, but to the parents. Can you imagine?
Right. And see, it's interesting you bring up St. Jude, because I'm a St. Jude donor as well.
Oh,
good. Because I agree with you. Because I see the commercials all the time about, the families don't have to pay for the hospital stay.
Right.
Medical care in terms of cost is astronomical. And now you're talking about a child that's going to need long-term care. So, yes, I agree with you in terms of St. Jude, in terms of the donations. Because, like I said, I am a donor. Matter of fact, the T-shirt, this T-shirt saves lives. I think that's what the T-shirt says.
Yes, sir.
But yes, I agree with you in terms of that. And again, there are just some things that I just don't even want to imagine. And I can't imagine, and my kids are grown now. They're grown, like 35 and 30.
Right.
But to think in terms of when they were like 4, 5, 3, 2, to be hit with news like that. Right. Exactly. So yes, I could not agree with you more. So in terms of because even while we're doing all this talking, you're working on your doctorate. How's that going?
We're moving forward with that. I can see some light at the end of the tunnel in the next 2 to 3 years with that.
Right.
Obviously, with so much going on with me, it's just something that it's a goal for me that I needed to complete.
Right.
Something that not just on my bucket list, but it was just more of something that I knew that I made a promise to my mother
Right.
that I would do, and so now I'm fulfilling that promise that I made, not only to her, not to myself,
Right.
but to my future patients as well.
Right. So you're because I'm in the process of writing a dissertation also, so I know how that is.
So So again, just when I think about my dissertation briefly, I'm looking at coping mechanism and spirituality in Black men diagnosed with prostate cancer, because again, let us not underestimate the importance of spirituality.
Correct.
Terms with coping, right?
Correct.
Because there's a lot of research out there saying that if you have some kind of religious affiliation or spirituality, you do better.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, you're right.
Those who don't.
I'm in your amen corner on that for sure, because I've been reading a lot of books in terms of even doctors who now have converted and believe in prayer. There's a lot of doctors now who at one point did not believe in prayer. Now they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yes, I if for nothing else, and I know because you're in if for nothing else, it can provide a placebo effect. If it doesn't do anything but that, but I know it's beyond. I know it's more than a placebo effect. This I know. But for those who are scoffers who just don't believe, all right, let's say for example, what do you have to lose by relying on a higher power? What do you have to lose?
Right. Well, I guess sense of self. I guess maybe, right? Because again, if you're at that point, either it's prayer or it could be, some, other means.
Right. It could be meditation. It could be right.
It could be meditation.
Yes.
Right. If we can tap deep within ourselves.
Right.
That's the goal and that's the key, I believe.
Correct. I'm with you. That's two of us now, for sure.
Right. So if you can tap into those, right, that you might come out on the end as a better person. Now, it's not for everybody, right?
Right.
But there are some, again, I'll say to my listeners and your listeners as well, too, there are those exceptionals. There are people who were diagnosed and said, well, you only got 6 weeks to live. 10 years, they still living. 15 years, they still living.
That's correct.
And then the science don't know how it happened.
That is right.
Well, I prayed for my, I prayed for my aunt, to not die or to cancer away. And then the doctor comes back and says, you know what? We don't see it anymore. We don't know what happened.
That's right.
So there are those exceptional.
There are.
Right. That I recommend everybody get that book.
No, I have an aunt. She's listening to us right now, lives in North Carolina. She's in 2000. She was in a horrific accident. She's listening to us right now. She was in a horse and buggy. The horse and buggy went out of control. The horse got spooked and she was in the buggy and the horse was going like 70, 80, 90 miles an hour and turned a corner and slammed the buggy into the side of a brick wall. Wow. Her head hit that brick wall.
Lord.
And she was in the hospital for weeks. And we had my parents, and relatives. We had everybody that she knew praying. We all were praying at the same time. And the doctor said exactly what you said. Like, we don't know how she came out of that. She was not supposed to have survived that. And we all looked at you and said, we do, because we knew we'd all been praying.
Right. And sometimes we don't know, nor should we know.
Right.
That's the power that we have that we don't even know about collectively as a unit.
Correct.
Praying for a person to be healed, to be delivered, to be set free, and for your aunt and for the other people who are giving, a certain day or weeks or months to live, and they're still living right now.
Right.
I salute them because these are the people who I would like to study in the future, right? What is it? Did you do anything differently?
Right.
We saw the tumor mass. We saw that through the X-ray on Monday.
Right.
But on Friday, it's gone, and we don't even know how.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely. So our listening audience, I hope you've been with me since 6. I certainly hope you've been with me since 7. My guest this morning is Michael Blizzard, and he is a Renaissance man. We're talking about a plethora of topics of his experiences and what he's experiencing. And there's another piece in the bio I wanted to talk about in terms of, I know you work here with the kids at William Patterson. What do you? Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we're gonna work our way to your show, and we'll be done. But in terms of what's the work? What's the work we're doing here with the students at William-Patterson?
I've been a member for the Pesci Family Mentoring Institute since its inception in 2014, because I always feel that it's very important to give back. And
Absolutely,
give back to the university that has been so good to me. Was to be a mentor, and there are other things that I do as well, serving on the executive committee and things of that nature. But mentoring is something right in my own playbook, because I've never had a mentor. I never had somebody that I can rely on. But I've always said that if I could be a mentor to somebody else, right, that's even the greatest gift ever. So when I joined the mentoring program, so what they do is pair you with someone who's has the same interests that you do. It could be in medicine, it could be in education, it could be in psychology, it could be in business. So they pair you with someone, and then they give you the training, how often that you should meet with the person. Should you meet the person once a month and twice a month? So they give you a guideline,
right?
And then you guide the student either freshman, sophomore, junior, senior to their graduation, and even beyond. A lot of my mentees, I'm happy to say, went on to great careers. One, I believe, got his PhD. Several got their master's. Several in the community. And so that, for me, just being a part of that is just so fulfilling and so rewarding to see these students, to give them a chance, give them an opportunity, because we always, saying that, well, our kids are not doing this, our kids are not doing that. But how much effort are we doing to help our children to excel? Right?
That's right.
So can I get an amen for that?
Yes, indeed. Amen.
So that is something that I enjoy doing. And by the way, we're coming up. We're going to have a 10-year celebration, because 10 years we've been together. The Pesci Family Mentoring Institute has been functioning for 10 years, and we're going to have a special celebration, and I'll keep you abreast.
Yeah, let me know. Keep me abreast of that for sure.
That. Yeah, because do you know what I mean? I mean, if you look at the statistics of students that come to the Pesci Family Mentoring Institute and do well, I mean, our numbers are in like upper 80s and 90s.
Wow.
How students are doing well, either in their careers, their home lives, or going on for advanced degrees as well too. So the Pesci Family Mentoring Institute has been a blessing to me, and I'm glad to be a part of this revolution, and I continue to add my expertise and experience to students, and also to now we're going to have more students who look like you, who look like me especially,
right?
Because we need to reach out to more of our young black men and black women to be a part of the Pesci Family Mentoring Institute. It doesn't hurt. It can just help you as you're navigating through your college experience. But sometimes people either don't know, or sometimes people are afraid, or sometimes people just don't have anyone to point them in the right direction.
That's right.
And that's why I'm there to say, hey, look, I'm here for you, and I'm here to help you. And whatever you need to do, just please let me can, because this is my way to sort of beat back against those statistics.
Exactly.
African Americans, they're not doing X, Y, or Z. So, yes.
No, actually, as we say, you're blessed to be a blessing. And that's exactly, yes. And you're absolutely right. So, yeah, definitely keep me, abreast of that. Now, last thing before we go, your radio show. Talk a little bit about that. Give me the concept, the name, how folks can access it, everything. Let's talk about your show.
Okay, so I started my show in May of this year. I'm on nunuradio.com. That is nuradio.com. It's a 24-hour internet radio station playing all the great music that you like to hear. So I come on every Saturday at 7 p.m. The name of my show is called Let's Talk About It. And every week I come up with different subjects.
Right.
So tonight I'll be talking about an Uncle Tom. What is an Uncle Tom?
All right now. Okay, all right.
Tune in tonight.
Yes.
If you want to hear more about Uncle Tom.
What'd you say? NU?
NU. radio.com.
Spell it out.
Like Nancy Universe.
Right.
All right. Radio.com.
Okay. All right. So tonight you're going to be talking about Uncle Tom. Oh, yeah. I know that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So again, the whole idea, see, this is just how my mind thinks. So the whole idea of when I pick up these different topics is something that's going to be entertaining and also enlightening for
Correct.
Because the thing is, when you call someone an Uncle Tom, do you really understand
the history of it?
Do you understand the history of it?
Right.
Right? Because, again, people don't understand the history of an Uncle Tom.
Right.
Right? So I'm doing a deconstruction of the word Uncle Tom and providing some clarity to my audience about an Uncle Tom. What is an Uncle Tom? Because if you're basing an Uncle Tom based upon the Uncle Tom's Cabin book by Harriet Beecher Stowe,
right,
you're in for quite a shock because Josiah Henson, who played the character, is not an Uncle Tom. He's not that kind of person. So I just think that for me, my research shown that, this derogatory slur is, again, came out of slavery.
Correct.
Because again, you're pitting, what we call the house slave,
correct,
the field slave,
correct,
versus the light-skinned slave,
correct,
versus the dark-skinned slave,
correct.
So when you have that sort of friction, right? Can you imagine if I'm in the field and you're in the house and you're currying favor with the master, right? This is how these things come about.
That's right.
So I'm going to talk about that, slavery, and then also, too, I'm going to, because every week I do either pick your brain segment of the show or I just do some reading. So I'm going to ask, at the second half of the show, I'm going to ask my listening audience, we're going to have a pick your brain segment. I'm going to ask them, questions like, well, give me an example. What is an example of an Uncle Tom? Or,
right.
Or have you ever been called an Uncle Tom?
Right.
What does that mean to you? So I just had fun.
Well, see, it's interesting that I hear, as you described, because that's my blog, and I haven't written to my blog lately, but my blog is called The Critical Thinker, and same type of concept, what you're talking about, just to kind of entertain and educate. I always tell people it's kind of like Jerry Seinfeld used to say his show was about nothing. And that's what I would say, in terms of my blog. It's like, it's just whatever, I observe things and see things that other people may not see it that way. And that's what just like you're talking about the Uncle Tom thing. So, all right, so we're down to I tell you what, this is what happens. I'm going to turn off the mic for a few minutes or so, allow you to promote anything you want to promote. You can promote anything you want. The only thing you cannot say is a dollar amount. But websites, your show, anything else you want folks to know, I'm going to shut the mic off. You get a chance to promote, and then we'll be out.
Okay. Well, again, first I want to thank you always for inviting me on this morning. I appreciate it. Thank you for that. Thank you to your listening audience. The only thing I can promote, I would like to promote to all of us is self-care. Take care of yourself.
Yes.
So if you like to, go for a walk, go for a jog, take care of yourself, because too often we're living in this fast-paced world and we ain't got time for ourselves. So to all the ladies and gentlemen that are online, take care of yourself. Do something for yourself. Give yourself a hug. Go get a popsicle, write a play, write a poem, do something, because, again, at the end of the day, this is our time to do something, because we're here created to do something, to be a blessing to somebody else. So be a blessing to yourselves, to your families. Take care of yourselves, enjoy yourselves. And lastly, tune in tonight on NuNuRadio.com at 7 p.m. to hear about Uncle Tom. So, yes.
I know that's right. Well, I'm going to tell you what, I am going to be tuned in tonight. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to be tuned in. I got a full day, but I'm going to make sure at 7 o'clock I'm going to be tuned into that episode for sure.
Yes. Thank you.
Man, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We will have to come back on and talk about Biddy Mason.
Oh, please.
And some other. We'll continue to interview at another time. I'm going to invite you back on, but thank you so much for rising early.
Yeah.
And joining me. I don't know. Can you hear the music? You might not can hear the music. I don't think I had the music. Let me see if I punch this button will you hear it. Yeah, that may mess because did you hear it or did it make a bunch of static?
Yes, I did. I heard it.
You did hear it? Okay. Because I know sometimes. Well, anyway, this is what I was telling you. Some of my music from my CD. I'm going to go ahead and close on out with it. But Again, thank you so much for rising with me. Fascinating. Like I said, perfect weekend since we're celebrating the 50 years of Black Studies here at William Patterson University.
Yes, always. William Patterson University, my home, sweet home. I love it. My heart's there. And I said to President Hal Dobler that I think William Patterson University should get its own burial ground, because we're so connected to it that I was just saying if I pass, I want to bury it to William Patterson University. So maybe have William Patterson Cemetery somewhere, and I'll be alone to be buried there, so we can still be there. Well, that's just a thought.
I hear you, but I tell you what, I do record the shows. It'll be on my YouTube channel for archive. I will send you the YouTube link and the MP3.
Thank you, sir.
All right, man. Have a great day.
You too, sir.
Take care.
All right.